Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. DDRM here. Hey, got another update for you on the 69 Mustang Fastback. I've been busting you know what since the last video just to get a whole bunch of little tiny stuff buttoned up, get this thing ready to actually start. So today is the day and I am going to try and start it. So you've heard me talk about him before. Stand-a-man. He's the welder. He is the one who did all the panel fitment and panel replacement on this, okay? From what you guys saw, I replaced, everything. So as of right now, it is sitting so pretty. I'm happy with the way things turned out. So the car is almost completely put together except the interior. Okay, that'll come after everything's run and check for leaks and stuff like that, and then I can start buttoning up the interior. But here is the motor. So everything's tidied, everything's hooked up, everything pretty much system check wise that I can do with the key on and the battery, and the gauges work, the headlights work, the turn signals work, the hazard lights work, the brake lights work. So everything works. So, shout out to American Auto Wire harness. Everything looks good there. And yes, I had to wire and pin and crimp everything. So, but it's not my first time doing a wire, AAW wire harness. It's just time consuming. As people know to restore these, it's very, the wiring is so time consuming. But, so here we are, progress. So, motor is in. Completely all hooked up, as you know before. So it's a 302, complete CVF serpentine system, Hyperspark 2 distributor and PDM module. DeWitt's aluminum radiator, dual fans. That was kind of a little chore to call Holly, try to coordinate, because on the directions on the Holly Sniper 2, they only show one fan controller on this PDM. And so you gotta kind of coordinate, like, see, it's tucked down in there along with the fan relays. So all of that stuff had to be coordinated. And I had to call Holly, because if you look at the PDM, you got your main throttle body sniper, right? And then you got the Hyperspark, and then that goes over in the harness and splits, and then you have your Hyperspark, your coil, your Hyperspark controller, which all that stuff down there, your mega fuse blocks. So everything's got to be tied in together. Well, there's specific wires for specific things, and each one of these slots is a designated wire. You got fuel pump, you have fan. Well, fan, there's only a spot for one. You got a fan trigger, which is over here on number 7. So you just have to coordinate, because the second one, there's an optional 6-pin harness, so that's where your second fan goes, unlike this output number 2. Well, then you have to have, because of the AC and stuff, so you have to wire in a trinary switch, which, goes right up here on the dryer. So call Holly, like, hey, where am I putting this trinary switch so I can get the right trigger, and it'll dumb down the RPMs or raise them up for the AC and stuff like that. So, or shut it off if you're full throttle. So that's another little input, one ground that the trinary switch has to hook to. So there's a lot of coordinating with systems. When you build these cars, you got to coordinate this system with this system, and and test everything and make sure that it's proper and everything works. And it's just a lot of, not really trial and error, but a lot of basically taking your time and making sure you're hooking things up right and to the right system. And you're calling the companies, but like, hey, Holly, I got this from American Auto Wire, and I got this trinary switch I need to hook up to this sniper, and then I have dual fans. So it's a lot of stuff, but everything checked out, everything's good. Then I had to get the tranny wired. So that was the other deal, is that's the tranny is, like I said, it's a Fred Brown Racing 4R70W, but it's a US shift control. This is the quick 4. So then you have to wire all that up to neutral safety switch, to your backup light. So I got that run. So you can see the main harness goes down on the side of the shifter. That'll all be hidden underneath the center console. Then I drill a hole in the floor. You put a grommet, it comes down the tranny. It's all buttoned up underneath, and loom and everything else, and it plugs into the tranny. Then you got to program it with the US shift. So you got to do the throttle position sensor, so it recognizes, there's a sensor in the sniper unit, and it recognizes like when the throttle is, let alone at idle or when it's wide open. So you have to set that. And once it gives you the green light check mark, then you're good. It goes through its checks, gives you a good, okay, everything checks out, which it did. So we had to kind of modify the shifter linkage for it's the basic one. When you get it from CJ Pony, it's for an AOD. Well, this is a 470W, which kind of should work, but it didn't. We had to modify just a little bit, kind of lengthen where it mounts to the actual stock shifter stud. Not a big deal. Thank goodness that I have Stan in my back pocket that, hey Stan, come on over, we need to modify this. So then Stan, we were here yesterday and we did this exhaust. Now it's a complete pipes 2.5-inch stainless exhaust. So this thing, it came out pretty darn nice. Get our prop box out of the way. So as you can see, we got ceramic coated hooker headers. They come down from the motor. I had them weld in the bung in the actual header for the O2 sensor for the sniper. And then we did an X pipe. So it's an X pipe 2.5 stainless steel. So we had to modify the angles because these headers, they kind of pinch in towards the tranny, and they're not in this, each side is not the same, it's different. So Stan had to come over, we had to kind of pie cut and weld this back together and get all again. And then we have the rest of it that we could make it serviceable and clamp on. So I did the nice bank. I don't like those U-shape. We had to use 2 of them in the rear, but that's because of the style of clamps that this car takes to clamp it to the hangers and stuff. But for the most part, it turned out really, really nice. It's nice and level. It's nice and solid. As you can see, you go on back. There's the mufflers up and over the rear end. Make sure your clearance is right. Make sure everything's set. Make sure everything's level. So, I mean, it looks really, really, really good. You know, I said, here's the rest of the underneath the suspension. The e-brake cable is done and stuff. The new wheels and tires that you know on it, they're all centered. And then here we go to the rear, and there's the tips. So they're polished stainless, and they come out, and they're stand, you know, is really, really good. We both sit here and marked it and got it completely level and the same distance spacing, so it looks good. I like it. It looks really, really good. It's not in your face, but it's a perfect little tip. I still got a button up. Like I said, the inside, this will be 6x9s. I have to get, there's this board that goes in here, and I got to lay that down in here and cut the holes in the mount the 6x9s is, you know, through it and stuff like that. And then I can start putting the sail panels with the courtesy lights in them, put that in, get the rest of the hush mat just underneath where the back seat goes, get the back panels on. So that's going to be next after I start it and run it. Radio works, radio plays. I had a couple issues with the amp, got that figured out. So we should be good to go now. So, and you see, I kind of left the US shift dang a little bit, and it'll get mounted up here, up above the kick panel, behind the dash, so it's accessible and stuff. But I just wanted to leave it down in case I had to get to the controllers and mess with things and everything. Because while it's up on the jack stands after it's running, I'm going to go through the gears like, you know, reverse and neutral. Just make sure the tranny's doing what it's supposed to do, and make sure it rotates and wheels and stuff like that. And I can press on the brake and make sure they're engaging. I haven't done the heat seat on the brake pad stuff that, you know, you have to do your heat cycle. Of course, I haven't done that yet because I haven't been able to drive it. So I'm just going to make sure they actually engage. They're all bled and hard and stuff, but I got to make sure they engage. And then the steering wheel I got to put on, but we had a little hiccup with that. This is an I Did It tilt column for a Ford. So they make a GM style base and a Ford style base. This is actually for the Ford style base. So the Grant steering wheel that I have, the hub adapter and stuff, was for a GM base. So I got the right one on order. It should be here in a day or two. Then I can actually put the steering wheel on and rotate everything. Because, you know, when I start this, I'm going to have to rotate this to get the air bubbles out of it. I'm just going to start it for now and then let it suck the system. You know, it's got to suck everything into the power steering box through the line, so I don't have to add to that. Same with the radiator fluid. I kind of have them propped up where they need to be. The engine's all full. The rear end's all full. So that's good. I shouldn't have to add anything to that really, maybe a smidget later, but the coolant, once it sucks it into the engine block, I'll have to add more to that. Same with power steering fluid, it'll suck it through the lines and stuff, I'll have to add to that. The tranny, it calls for 12 quarts. I have about 10 into it right now. Once it sucks it through the valve body into the torque converter and stuff, I'll probably have to add some to that. You know, but you kind of do that after it's running. So I've already primed it. So thank goodness that works. Because up here on the PDM, this blue wire right here is your fuel pump trigger. So, and then you wire your fuel pump up here too. So once the Sniper was created, it wouldn't work before, but I think it was because it wasn't programmed. So once I programmed it, then everything worked. It turns on at prime. I got full gas up here. I should have full PSI. I should be ready to rock and roll. Everything's buttoned, everything's tightened. You know, the AC lines came out beautiful that I made and stuff like that. I put it on the passenger side because I thought it would be a lot more simpler than draping it over the motor and running over. And it did. It came out really nice. The number 10, the number 8 down, your number 6. So I said I had the hydraulic crimp when I made all this and got in getting the holders. I think Billet Specialties makes these black ones for the number 10 and 6 hose, which are really nice. That holds them really nice. Yep, don't forget your seal tape on the 10, which I had to do. The wire looms are all tucked and done. This is your heater hose, same thing. I got the really nice holders for this. This is your heater valve. You know, fuel pressure gauge and stuff like that. All the spark plug wires are loomed nice and neat. Everything looks, you know, I'm happy with the way it turned out. It looks really, really good. Like I said, I tried to take extra time and kind of hide as much as I can within the Mustangs. The only way to really hide this is if you eliminate the shock towers and you do flat panels on the aprons and then build like a channel that you can literally, a cover channel, so when it's painted you don't even know it's there. You can run all the wires and hoses and everything through that except like your spark plugs. But you can run them in a channel along the bottom of the frame rail. And then a Mustang that I bought a 67 fastback for myself. It's a GT500. So I'm actually going to do it that way. I'm going to eliminate the aprons and they're going to be flat, and I'm going to hide everything. So it's luckily I got like it's probably a 428 in it. We think it's a 390 hypo or a 428. We're leaning towards 428. So 428 roller motor, Tremec 5-speed, the whole 9 yards. But anyway, that's another project. But for now, like I said, everything's in and set. It's primed. Everything works. So Wix filter, I really like the Wix filter. That's a 515R racing filter. They're really, really nice. So the same with my motor builder, Hot Rod Company. You run this for about 150 miles or something like around there, and then I'll have to change the oil again. He likes to do the break-in with the 30 weight Lucas with the additive, so I always do that on the 150 and I change it, and then you don't have to change it again until 500. So after that, the second oil change with the filter and the break-in, then at 500, then you'll just put in full synthetic and you'll be fine. So, you know, like I said, I had crossing my fingers on a bunch of stuff this week, testing everything, and everything worked out and panned out. There was a couple hiccups, but not too bad. Nothing that we couldn't sort out, but for the most part, it's all good. Like I said, these are the gauges that, you know, Wyatt picked out. They're actually really nice. I like them in here. They look good. There's a couple interior tweaks I got to do, but other than that, like I said, get it running, tuned. Let the Sniper do its thing, let it do a heat cycle, do its thing, and then once that's done, then like I said, I can button up the rest of the hush mat on the floor and kind of get the back area done. The back seat and front seats have already been recovered, so I can get that in. The carpet, usually, and I'll put the carpet in and just usually bolt like the driver's side seat in. That way I can take it over, and I want to run it on the dyno and not do a road until I have to, because I don't want any rock chips or something like that. So we're going to run it on the dyno and kind of do like the break-in for the 100 miles or whatever. And then I'm actually going to get the car, the fenders, all this stuff PPF'd for the client. So, because he wants to drive it, I said, well, let's protect it. So I'm going to have my guy PPF the front fenders and half the hood and then down the rocker, because this has got that matte hood scoop on it, and I just don't want to get into it, and I don't want him to take the hood scoop off. So But it shouldn't be. We'll just do half the hood and stuff like that. It'll protect most of the car and the rockers and the rear quarters. So it'll be nice in the back of the mirrors. That way he'll be protected when he likes to drive and stuff like that. But everything else is done. It looks good. So we're going to start it. So then I'll give you an update, hopefully next video. Everything's running. Tune time, running, and ready to start interior. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you next time.